All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good morning and welcome to All Indiana Politics. I'm Garrett Bergquist in for Phil Sanchez. This week we turn our attention to the statewide races on your ballot. Republican Todd Rokita is running for a second term as Attorney General. He faces a challenge from Democrat Destiny Wells. She ran unsuccessfully for Secretary of State 2 years ago. They're the only two candidates in that race. I talked to both of them about their plans for the office. We begin with Destiny Wells.
I have worked in that office. You know, when I came back home from Afghanistan, I wanted to find a position in state government where I could take my leadership skills and serve the state of Indiana. And I worked there under Curtis Hill. I loved my time there, but it was obvious that we needed some new leadership. And, you know, I didn't think it could get worse than Curtis, but unfortunately, Indiana has found itself under the leadership of Todd Rokita, and I believe it's time for a change.
Housing's become a major issue in this election. Given Indiana's weak tenant protection laws, what would you do on that if elected?
Yeah, everywhere I'm going on the campaign trail, I am hearing, particularly from tenants. Tenants don't know where to turn when they are having problems with their landlords. Like you said, we are one of the weakest states. We are one of 5 states where if a tenant has an issue, they can't put their money into escrow while they battle that out through the courts. And so what we want to be able to do is advise the legislature going into this next session how to improve the law for tenants. We're also looking at a market where we're making it more difficult for Indiana home buyers, right? We have these large corporations from out of state coming into Indiana, especially Indianapolis, scooping up housing and then renting it out so that our own citizenry can't afford housing. There are a lot of issues to tackle when it comes to affordable housing, and that touches pretty much every Hoosier, doesn't it? From renting to home owning. So we will be taking that head on.
You said that you would redirect the office's resources toward labor trafficking and wage theft. How would that look on the ground?
Right. So statutorily, the Indiana Attorney General's office has the authority to look at trafficking, to investigate trafficking. That was stood up primarily under Zeller, and it has, and then it was strengthened under Hill, but Todd Rokita has not focused on it so much. And so with labor trafficking, what we're talking about is we are talking about people, most likely immigrants who are being trafficked to different types of jobs and undercutting our hardworking union jobs. So what we want to do is we want to model off of other states and start what we are going to call the Workers' Rights Task Force, where we are looking at crimes like wage theft, like worker misclass, because the Indiana Attorney General's office has not ever been reimagined since right to work. We have made these huge shifts in the law under a supermajority Republican government, but then we've done nothing to shore up the needs of Hoosiers. We are talking about making this office the people's attorney. Yes, we do represent the government. Yes, we do advise the legislature, but why have we lost focus on Hoosiers?
You've been an outspoken critic of Indiana's abortion ban, and as you've alluded to, one of the jobs of the Attorney General is to defend the state in civil and criminal litigation. Would you defend the state's abortion ban in court absent any changes by the legislature? Until we hear from the Supreme Court of the United States that this law is unconstitutional, there's a bit of a balance there, right? You have to defend the laws and uphold the rule of law. And when you know if a law is illegal, right? If I know something's been found by the Supreme Court to be illegal here in Indiana, we're not going to waste resources trying to defend that. However, we are in a position right now in the United States where women's rights are being undercut even up to the Supreme Court of the land. What I want to do is to make sure that we're not abusing our authority, right? Well, we will defend the laws as they come, but we're not going to
exceed our authority, scare doctors, chill medical care. If you look across Indiana, we are losing doctors. It's not just about abortion anymore. It's also about healthcare deserts. OBGYNs at large do not want to practice here. We just had a death of a woman in northeast Indiana because she couldn't find proper OB care in time. Those are the issues where we're not going to exceed our authority.
Would you sue Donald Trump over his policy actions if he wins a second term?
Well, so let's go back to what the duties are of the Indiana Attorney General, right? They are to defend the state under any constitutional challenges. So if the state of Indiana and the office feels that Donald Trump is violating the Constitution, then I suppose that we probably would entertain the idea of probably filing a friend of the court brief if we need to, what our opinion is, right, on any standing litigation, or just look at that case as it comes. We've already been here before, right? We've seen Todd Rokita go after Joe Biden, the President Biden, multiple times, a lot. Again, it's a prioritization of resources in the office. You're never going to have enough resources to do what you want. Sometimes Indiana is not the best to lead the charge. I would argue that Todd Rokita has Indiana on multiple cases where we are not best equipped to lead the charge. The same thought process would go into a Democratic Attorney General under a Republican president if that was to occur.
Is it the job of the Attorney General of the state of Indiana to sue the President of the United States over policies the Attorney General disagrees with? I
would argue that no, it's not always the job. Again, Garrett, it is not a yes or no answer. It is a case-by-case basis. I argue all the time that the Indiana Attorney General is involved in litigation that he shouldn't be, right? Climate policy in California, for example, who's best to deal with that? Neighboring states that are opposed or Indiana? Border issues, is Indiana resourced to be leading the charge, or is it a Republican state like Texas? So again, it's a case-by-case basis. If the Constitution is being violated, Garrett, then yes, it is subject to litigation.
Coming up, Todd Rokita makes his case for a second term as Attorney General. Welcome back. Todd Rokita says he'd continue to get involved in lawsuits over national level policy decisions if he's reelected. That's just one part of our interview.
Listen, I love this state. I love the people of this state. I want to fight for the people. You know, everyone from my wife to my family to my supporters generally to the people of Indiana knows that I'm a fighter, and I fight for them. We got a lot of work that we started, a lot of work that we want to finish, and so that's why I'm not running for any other office or anything else. I want to continue to be your Attorney General because I want to continue doing the job.
Housing's become a major issue in this election. You've taken legal action against a number of landlords over their treatment of tenants. Does Indiana need more tenant protections?
Well, I'll let the General Assembly decide that. They're the lawmakers, and what I do is I enforce the law. And yeah, it's true, we have a limited enforcement authority here, but we've made the most of it. You've seen us do more than just about any other Attorney General out there. And that's because I feel that once you pay your rent, or in a lot of cases, like it or not, once the taxpayers pay the rent for somebody, that renter or the taxpayer deserves the service. And so it's wrong. It's simply wrong for a landlord to not run water, to not have heat, to have infestations of mice and other rodents. That's wrong after the rent's been paid.
Would you lobby the General Assembly to tighten up those laws?
I'll tell you what. I think there's some common sense things that we can be doing in the 21st century with it, and I've already expressed that to the lawmakers, and we'll see if they take it up, and they're my clients too, so I want to give them the space they need to tackle a lot of problems that we have, this being one of them. Meantime, whether they pass a law or not, I'm going to enforce the law on the books, and you've seen what we've been able to do.
You've already been cited by the Indiana Disciplinary Commission over your comments regarding Dr. Caitlin Bernard. Why should voters give another term to someone who could face disbarment if there's another issue?
Oh my word! I can't imagine that would ever be the case. But it is true. The process has been weaponized. The Democrats are making a mockery out of the Indiana Supreme Court, and that's why any further investigations need to be dismissed. Now, it's true. I was prematurely made some comments, and I agreed. I did. I could always do better. But that hardly means disbarment for anything. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Why have you devoted so many of your office's resources to national level issues such as immigration, border security, abortion, LGBTQ issues? Why not instead focus on matters closer to home such as housing or consumer protection?
Well, I have focused on housing and consumer protection. And unlike my opponent, I can walk and chew gum at the same time. And it's needed now more than ever. Bad ideas, whether they come from California, Washington, D.C., or anywhere in between, still badly affect Hoosiers. And we have to protect Hoosiers against them. And that's what we're doing. When you join with 20 some other states like we do a lot of times and combine our resources so we can fight this federal government that has grown way out of hand, way too large, filled with people who are not elected by anybody, we keep them accountable. Other states, when they even pass their laws, has an effect on Hoosiers if that state's big enough, like a California, like a New York. We keep those bad ideas from harming Hoosiers. And again, it's part of the work that I love to do and love to fight for Hoosiers on.
Would you file lawsuits against a President Kamala Harris if she wins and pursues policies you disagree with?
Well, if they're illegal, if they encroach on Indiana's sovereignty, and that's what Kamala Harris has done to date. It is the Kamala Harris administration, right? And we've been suing them for 4 years. So if she was to win, I hope she doesn't. I don't expect her to. I expect to be working with President Trump. But if she does win, and she already said she has no problem with what her administration has done to date, or more particularly what it hasn't done to date. Like, look at this open border. Look at the fentanyl increase in Indiana. Look at the crime increase in Indiana. Look at the sex trafficking increase in Indiana. The open border is literally killing Hoosiers, and she's not going to do anything about it. She hasn't done anything about it. Just like my opponent, Destiny Wells, who's nothing more than a soldier who takes orders from the Kamala Harris campaign, who takes orders from Kamala Harris. She's a foot soldier in that movement. And just like Kamala Harris, she's saying one thing, but if she got in office, she'd do a complete about face. And it'd be terrible for this country, it'd be terrible for this state.
Is it the job of the state attorney general to sue the President of the United States over policies you disagree with?
Yeah, of course it is, especially when it erodes state sovereignty. Under our Constitution, the state, and that's my client, the state, I do what's in the best interest of the state, and when they're acting unconstitutionally, or when their actions are unconstitutional to a wide number of Hoosiers, like we found when we fought against them on the vaccine mandate. Remember that? They were going to use the authority of the federal government to mandate every Hoosier and every American be vaccinated, whether or not, but with an experimental drug, whether that Hoosier wanted to or not. And we fought against that, and we won because it was unconstitutional. So there are all kinds of things an administration can do, and then this one has done, that are unconstitutional, that affects our sovereignty, that hurts the people of this state. So you bet I'm going to continue to fight against it.
What's one thing you were not able to accomplish during your first term that you would like to do during a second term if you're reelected?
We do have a lot of illegal aliens in Indiana. They're depleting our resources. They're increasing crime. They're bringing fentanyl. Children, girls, boys being sex trafficked more than we've ever seen before. And I'm going to be looking for ways to get them out of Indiana. And by definition, get them out of send them back home.
Coming up, Indiana's best political team on the Attorney General's race, the politics of disaster, and more. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Dana Black and Republican Allie Bartlett. Let's begin with the race for Attorney General. Dana, Destiny Wells has already lost one statewide election, and she's way behind Todd Rokita in fundraising. Does she have a realistic chance?
I think she does. I think she has a realistic chance because Hoosiers are seeing that Todd Rokita has wasted a lot of money, Indiana money, doing things that had nothing to do with Indiana. And then he didn't do the things that he should have done. For example, there's a $700 million Medicaid fraud that he could have went after. And so instead of families being kicked off FSSA and having to defend for themselves, he could have went after that $700 million fraud. But instead, he decided to, go after Dr. Caitlin Bernard and disparage her on Fox News. I found it interesting that he said that Destiny was a shrill of the Harris administration, but it's really the Biden administration. And he is actually projecting, because everything that he said in his interview, you can go find 400 other Republicans from around the country who were spewing the exact same rhetoric that that Donald Trump is spewing out. He was projecting because he is a voice for Donald Trump.
Allie, I'll let you respond to that, but also could the controversies Rokita has been involved in, such as the Caitlin Bernard situation, put him at risk?
Look, we just have not seen that be the case at all. I mean, there's been a lot of independent polling done in this race, and Todd Rokita is ahead in every single independent poll. Like Dana mentioned, he is outpacing her in fundraising in large, substantial amounts. I think over $1 million just in the last quarter. And he also just received some key endorsements, including from labor unions. And so I really don't think that anything to do with the abortion matter is going to inhibit his ability to win. I think he actually, by the numbers, has done a great job as Attorney General. I mean, he's actually set a record for over $1 billion in legal settlements, and that money goes back to Hoosiers. So if we look at the record that Todd Rokita has achieved as Attorney General, it actually is very substantial. I think that he's going to win this race, no problem.
Let's turn to national politics and specifically the impact of Hurricanes Helene and Milton. Allie, former President Donald Trump has a very narrow lead in North Carolina. Hurricane Helene hit the most staunchly Republican part of the state. How worried should Republicans be about potentially losing votes there due to access issues in that part of the state and Kamala Harris possibly flipping North Carolina?
Well, I really, truly hate to politicize such a horrific tragedy that's occurred in our country. But obviously, it is a reality that we have to think about, not politically, but just by virtue of allowing these people to be able to exercise their civil right to vote. I think it is a concern, not even politically, but just across the board, logistically. I pray and hope that these individuals that have been affected by the hurricanes are able to get out and do that, but I know it's also not going to be at the top of their mind. Obviously, they have a lot more to go toward thinking about right now, especially because the federal government has not done very much to help them, which I think is a complete travesty. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's a concern that these people won't be able to get out to vote, but at the same time, I don't think Donald Trump is concerned about that. He is the one candidate in this race who has expressed actual concern for the victims of these hurricanes and has actually committed to helping them in whatever way he can.
Dana, how does the disaster response so far help or hurt Harris? Or if everything goes smoothly, would that have any impact at all?
First, I want to also address the voting. I think Allie is absolutely right. This will impact all voters. Unfortunately, when turnout is low, then it tends to lean towards Republicans. So I would actually be inclined to say that low voter turnout may hurt Democrats more. But we know Republicans have been lying their behinds off when it comes to relief from the federal government. The federal government and FEMA have been on the ground, but unfortunately, the other side has decided that they want to politicize it, and not just politicize it, but lie vehemently about the help that the federal government has been giving. When you speak to the governors of those states, they have all indicated the federal government has been quick to respond to make sure that they have what they need. Any other assertion is just not true, and we know it's a lie. And they were even touting the fact that, the Biden administration introduced a $750 immediate relief fund for families who needed diapers or formula or baby milk or whatever it is. And they're trying to suggest that that is all the money that they will get. Again, there's a bunch of lies being told. What kind of person are you to lie about the assistance that is available to you in the middle of a disaster?
Allie, I'll give you about 30 seconds to respond, running out.
Yeah, I don't think that those are the specific lies that we're talking about, but I will say I saw with my own eyes that Kamala Harris was on a late night show drinking a beer with a host the night after one of these horrific hurricanes. And personally, I just don't think it's a good look. I don't think that shows very much commitment to those American families that are struggling and at their lowest point at this time. And we have seen a lot of actually Hoosiers out there on the ground helping these people because they're not getting the help they need. I know personally too, even state legislators of ours that have gone down there with planes and resources, and people are trying to help people, and it's not enough. Whatever the federal government may or may not.
Allie and Dana, we will have to leave it there. Unfortunately, we're out of time for the week.
No.
Thank you so much. We'll be right back. We'll be back next Sunday morning at 9:30. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.